there is a small group of Christian organizations working to be strategic about collaboration and evangelism in Houston. And so Kevin Palau actually came to Houston this past December and assembled a few of us together. And that's where I met Mr. Walt Bennett. He has a passion for evangelism and for seeing folks be reconciled to God. So please welcome him as he tells us a little bit about organic outreach and take some notes about how you can follow up and get in contact with him. So Mr. Walt, come on in.
Thank you, Brittany, and thank you, everyone, for giving me a few minutes in this gathering to just kind of talk about and share what we do. We're very much aligned with what the Palau Association does. We work with them in other parts of the country and around the world. So Organic Outreach International, our primary mission and our work is teaching and coaching pastors and denominational leaders around the world on how we change the culture of our churches to get every Christian engaged in evangelism in their lives in ways that are natural, that they're engaging every single day. It just becomes second nature for them. And that's so pertinent to what the work that you're doing here. I also do have a background. So I'm a pastor and the president of the organization. We're based in Monterey, California, but my family recently relocated here. We actually live in Montgomery, Texas. So I'm thrilled to be here in this area. My wife and I just felt a calling to move to Houston. We didn't know exactly why, but God was drawing us here, and here we are. And I can't help but think that this is part of the reason that we're here. But some of the things just resonated. I have so many notes I took down. I won't be able to cover everything. I'd love to talk more at another time. But going back to what Pastor McGee mentioned, part of the biggest issue that we have in the church, particularly, it's more here in the Western world than other parts of the world, is this image of what evangelism is, and that image is what frightened the people in the school district in Portland about what they would expect with Christians coming in. And so it's this image that evangelism involves standing on a soapbox with a Bible in one hand, yelling fire and brimstone and trying to scare people out of hell. And that is one way to do evangelism, and can be effective for somebody who's very good at it, for people who are ripe and ready at that moment. But for the rest of us, it's something that makes us very uncomfortable as Christians, and as evidenced by the leaders in Portland and the schools there, uncomfortable for non-Christians. So we need to unpack what is evangelism really, and our perception of evangelism is anything that we as Christians do to intentionally build relationships with people who don't know Christ, and through those relationships over time earning the right and the trust to share who Jesus Christ is. Evangelism is not getting someone to accept Christ. It's preparing the soil, it's planting seeds, it's leading people along. The only one that brings people to Christ is the Holy Spirit. And we can't do that. We get no notches in our belt. We get no extra stars in our crown, jewels in our crown. We're here to do the work in between, to walk alongside people and bring them to that point when the Holy Spirit decides it's time to move. So changing that perception, particularly for Christians, can really help to release more people in your church to actually get engaged in it. And so that's one of the things that we do, is we help change the culture of churches so that everyone recognizes what this is. And once again, through learning and practice and repetition, it just becomes second nature. So back also to one of the points that Kevin made, and was there in the slide that said, here's what you can't do. We can't initiate, but there's a whole lot of other stuff outside of initiation. And so, the goal in these partnerships is that as we work alongside teachers, we work alongside students, we come alongside parents, that we're intentionally building relationships with them. And in the course of that relationship, one of the most powerful things we can do is look for opportunities to share things from our own life and share, possibly what God's done in our life, and raise curiosity to the point that they actually ask questions. Once they ask questions, the doors are wide open and you can have conversations. I would say an area to be sensitive about is when you're working with students. because you don't know what the position of the parents is. You don't know what the students are going to come back and say, oh, so-and-so said this to me today. So we want to be cautious around that. And if it's appropriate, whatever they ask about and you're talking about, mention, hey, I want to make sure your folks would be okay with this, but I can give you some basic information. Then if they're all right, we can talk more. Things like that. You can protect yourself and stay in good graces. But this challenge of the culture within the churches, I mean, to Kevin's point, we couldn't muster folks to go in and start proselytizing if we paid them to. Christians are very uncomfortable about it because of this misperception of what evangelism is. And so the question is, how do we equip and prepare them to do that? And in fact, if you look at, I would ask those of you who are representing churches here, what percentage of your church is actually engaged in this work with the schools? And I would be willing to bet that the larger your church is, the smaller that percentage is. And if you step back even further and say, what percentage of our church is really engaged in anything beyond showing up for Sunday services and once in a while a worship night on Wednesday, and the rest of the time they go through their life figuring, if I write my check, do my tithe, I'm supporting evangelism, and I'm done. So I would ask, how much more powerful can the efforts of your churches with these schools be if every single person in your church were engaged? And so that's the work that we do with pastors and churches, is finding a path to get everyone in the church engaged every day in their life through what their normal interests are, and how do we build those relationships, and how do we share who Jesus Christ is. You may walk alongside somebody for a month and suddenly they're ready to have the gospel shared and accept Christ. You may walk alongside them for years. You may walk alongside them for decades and then never get the chance to share the gospel. That's okay. You're still doing evangelism. You're helping to share the character of Christ. The Holy Spirit hasn't moved yet. Somebody else may have the privilege to do that. And so we don't discount our efforts when we do that. We celebrate the fact that we have the opportunity to speak into those relationships. I can't tell you how many people, when I look back, I didn't become a Christian until I was 37 years old. And I look back at the people who were Christians who poured into my life over those years. I never became a Christian. They have no idea that I became a Christian. And not only a Christian, but I now I'm a pastor, and I teach thousands of pastors around the world, impacting millions of Christians. They have no idea. And I can't wait to get to heaven and tell them, you have no idea what your faithfulness in pouring into me and just caring about me, the difference that's made in the kingdom. And so if we can get our churches to engage in that way, recognizing that the Holy Spirit does that final work, we're here to plant seeds, to water those seeds, to nurture those seeds, and pray outside, pray with them in every opportunity, and just pray that God reveals, who are the people you want us to be working with? Who do you want me to pour my time into? So that's a lot covering specifically the partnership here, as well as the work that we do with churches. If you go to our website, organicoutreach.org, there is a ton of content there that is all free.
Sorry, I do want to end on time for everyone. So I have your information up here. And as you guys can see, there are free resources that are offered here, and there are fee-based resources that you guys can see that are in dark green. You can go to www.organicoutreach.org to get those resources. You can tell that Walt is super passionate about this topic, and I agree with you that the training work that you provide helps the whole congregation to be able to get involved. Unfortunately, in some of our church group partnerships, it's just a few people that are doing this work. But if you guys can connect with Walt, especially as leaders of your church, and he can come and train your churches and enrich your churches so that the congregation is more evangelism minded and oriented, that would be awesome. Walt, again, thank you so much.
I have one free thing I want to give out to everybody.
Absolutely.
We have a comprehensive outreach culture assessment for a church that we typically charge for. If you go to our website, if you use the promo code Loving Houston, you'll get that assessment for free.
Awesome.
And I'm available to walk through that assessment, how to set it up, how to administer that, and what you do with it once you're done. You can email me, walt@organicoutreach.org.